We have come to Mount Zion, the city of the living God, the spiritual reality of what is still physically to come. We have come to angels rejoicing, to the heroes of the faith in chapter 11, now enrolled in heaven. We have come to God, to the throne of grace through Jesus' blood and intercession by his death and resurrection. We have been adopted and redeemed, saved and sealed by the infilling of the Holy Spirit. We have come to a mountain. Remember this, at Sinai, God said, don't even touch the mountain. Now he says, I'll fill you with my Spirit. I'll write my law on your hearts and on your minds. We once were at a distance, and now there's not only no distance, he lives in us. We've come to a totally different mountain. He has taken hold of us, and now we are kept by the power of God through faith. They weren't even kept by their own consecration. We're now kept by God's work in us, through us, and for us. You've heard me talk about this before, but I have to talk about it again. The Greek word we translate here as kept is a military term. It describes a city that is either protected from the hostile invasion or it is besieged so that the inhabitants can't get out. That means we have come to the hands that keep us. Nothing can separate us from his love, and no one can pluck us out of those hands. We are safe, secure, desired, and held. We are kept because Mount Zion doesn't give anybody back once they get to the mountain. Sinai took lives. Zion gives life. We have come to a mountain that is different than every other mountain. But here's where our faith must take sight and where our hope has to become endurance. If we are securely in his hands, then even trouble that comes our way comes through him, because it's been ordained by him to teach us to trust him so it can make us more like him. It's all about him. Paul's thorn in the flesh in 2 Corinthians 12 was to keep him from becoming prideful. It was trouble. It was difficulty. Paul even called it a messenger of Satan, but it was purposed for a blessing. But hear me in this. It was not trouble that ever resolved. It was trouble that God ordained to bear fruit, but it never resolved. Paul carried that thorn. Personally, I think that it was the persecution of the Jewish religious leaders. He carried that thorn until death. It never resolved. A lot of us are willing to endure until it resolves. What if it's not supposed to resolve? What if it's supposed to produce something? What if it's supposed to bring forth a crop out of us? Because isn't that what ultimately God had told Paul all along? He told Ananias at the very beginning, I've told him how much he has to suffer for me. So Paul's whole life was not about suffering till he didn't suffer. It was about suffering to produce what God desired from his suffering. What if the thing that you and I are fighting against is actually producing something that God says is more valuable, is more worthwhile, is worth whatever suffering or trouble we have to find ourselves living in the midst and living through?